Hey there, folks. How are y'all? Welcome to Writing Music with Andrew McKee. Here he'll be sharing his advice on devising song structures, penning lyrics, and tips for how to get it all down on paper. Everybody, welcome Andrew.
Hello, I am Andrew McKee, the Irish Bard, and today we're going to talk a little bit about how to write music. Now, I know it can be a very intimidating process for writing music. Even if you've done it before, it can still be a bit of a bit of a challenge and very nerve-wracking. It seems, I think it seems to a lot of people to be like some mystical process that people just somehow get inspiration and music pours out of them. There's not as much skill as there is just talent, and I want to say I totally disagree with that. Talent is a cheat sheet. It helps when you have that ability to just come up with music on the fly without going through a process. It just appears in your brain. It's a huge advantage, but you can still get there. And I want to go ahead and talk about, I want to go ahead and talk about a process. Think of writing music as like an A to Z process. Just you go through all of these different steps, and what talent gives you is you skip steps. Like maybe you have talent in a certain area, and you just go straight from D all the way to M, and then you have to work at the other parts, and that's the difference. But if you come up with those steps for you, you can still get there. And then the process of editing comes in and you make the song even better. So first, yeah, that's the main thing I want to get across. I want to demystify the concept of music because it's not some sword in the stone type of thing. It's just a process where talent can give you shortcuts. Your brain is just wired to skip those steps, and it's nice. But and you probably have some of that in you. I think most people do. At least skipping a few steps in there where your brain just works that way, and it's easier for you than it is for some other people in some ways. So anyway, that's what I wanted to get across at the beginning. I'm going to go through this pretty quick because we don't have a lot of time, and but rest assured, I am going to leave some time at the end for comments and questions, so that you can, if you do have any questions, there will be time. If you do have questions during the show during the panel, go ahead and ask them. Put them up, and if it seems apropos to what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and answer them right then. But don't worry, there will be time at the end. And I do see a few people on here already. Thomas and Wayne, hello, on Facebook. So thanks for joining me. Now, like I said, music is kind of a bit of steps. You start with one section. Now, I like to divide music into three sections. There's melody, lyrics, and rhythm. Now, those are very, very general concepts, and I'm definitely summarizing a lot. But that's how I like to think about it. Melody, lyrics, and rhythm. And I think generally everyone is better at one of those than the other. And I'm a firm believer that that's where you should start with music. Like, for instance, if you were really good on drums or played drums in the band in high school, and you are really good with coming up with rhythms, or at least you're experienced with it and you're comfortable with it, that is probably a place where you should start with a song. When you're writing a song, start with the rhythm. Get something really good that caters to your strengths to begin with as a foundation, and then put the other stuff on top of it. Now, for me, I find that I think I'm a little lucky. I tend to be better at melody and lyrics. Those are my strengths. I'm not quite sure. I think melody I'm probably is my overall strength, but I think I'm fairly good with lyrics too. But yeah, I mean, I tend to start with either melody or lyrics, or sometimes both at the same time, and then rhythm comes in afterwards. But definitely start with the foundation. That's that's pretty much step one or step A, as I've said, A to Z, in the process of writing a song. Pick one: melody, lyrics, rhythm. Find out where your strength is and come up with something. That's where I said, quote, talent comes in, where or at least skill, where you're trained, you have that process already established with you, either automatically or training because you've worked with rhythm before, or you've worked with melody before, or lyrics, and that is where you should start. Now, after you've started there and you have that foundation, the next step is to bring in another component in there and layer it on top. Now, when you first start out writing songs, I think it's important to try to train your brain to think about those other elements while you're writing your foundational one. So I've been using rhythm as an example. You're writing your rhythm, think about what you want the song to be about. You know, what kind of feelings you want to have with it. You know, maybe try to think of some melody in there. Rhythm can be very melodic. Think about it like a finger picking guitar or arpeggios on a piano. I mean, rhythm can do that. So that is something to consider. With certain drums, you can get a lot of different tones and different notes out of it, so to speak. So you can get a melodic component out of it. Yeah, I don't know how I started on rhythm, but I just did. Anyway, but yes, that's sort of the trick to it, to early on develop your brain and just kind of get used to thinking about all three at once, at least in a slight way, just to have it in your brain, and it will get easier because you start seeing that those three elements are not as separate as they appear. Because later on you're going to arrange it and have all of them layered together to create an overall song. And while you're creating at the beginning, you can kind of do a little of that as you go. And it makes it a lot easier. But for now, don't worry about that. Start with that foundational place, and whether it's rhythm or lyrics or melody, and get something out. Then start thinking about what kind of song you want and go with the second element. And it may be either of the other two. There's no rule that says you have to start here. Like, for instance, I'll use melody again. I'm sorry, rhythm again. If you start out with rhythm, you could jump on melody or lyrics left. But if you're really good at rhythm, doesn't mean you have to start there. If you have a great lyric idea, hey, run with that. Develop that as much as you can at the beginning, and then go ahead and add rhythm to it. Bring that strength as something to go along with, and then maybe finish the lyrics and tweak those as much as you can, and then get the melody in there as well. So I hope all of that made sense a little bit. I know I kind of went around all over the place a little bit, but the goal here is to just for you to understand and be clear that there are three elements: melody, lyrics, and rhythm. And you should start off with what you're best at, generally speaking. At least that's what you should develop the most at the beginning. Because if you have a really strong foundation, the song's going to be better. Let's just admit that. Okay, so at the beginning, I want to see Sean joined us. Hello. At the beginning, it's once you've done that, and you have that foundation, then you move on and now, I call it layering, but there's a lot of different names for it out there. Putting the different elements together, that is a skill in itself. Because you can be really good at rhythm, you can be really good at writing melodies, you can be really good at penning lyrics, but having all of it work together, that that can be a tough process as well. And it is in there. So think about the first few steps is writing your core. The next few steps is coming up with some ideas in the other areas, and then putting it all together so that it blends and they complement each other. And that's the trick. Different rhythms will complement different melodies differently. Like there are rhythms that will not go with a certain melody, and there are melodies that will not go with a certain rhythm very well. So trying to make that work is a bit of a challenge. Now, I know I'm giving you a lot of general tips here, and you might think that this isn't helping too much, but I'm just trying to give you some foundational stuff to start. If making that blend some of it is instinct, some of it is trial and error. And at the beginning, go with trial and error. Just try some stuff and see if it works. The classic view of the composing singer-songwriter is the person playing the guitar and just strumming different chords and singing random lyrics and trying stuff. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, I like that. Hey guys, hey, check this out. I think we got a song. And, that's the classic writing a song trope in every TV show and movie that has it. So that that's kind of how it works, though. I mean, it's not just some spontaneous, this is a song. A lot of it is just trying random stuff until you like what you got. And this is for the talented people. So anybody can just go ahead and try random stuff. And then the rest is just taste to be able to see and hear that this is what is good, that this will work well. So first step, if you're probably working on your core area. I'll use rhythm again as an example. You probably have some experience with rhythm. You listen to it a lot in the music that you like. And so you have a familiarity with what works for you. So that's where your taste develops. And from that, you can create your own sound, your own feel. Now, creating your own sound is important as well. Let me see. There was a good quote by Billie Holiday that I've always liked. Let me see. No two people on earth are alike. And it's got to be that way in music, or it isn't music. So you need to develop your own sound. Start off at the beginning, kind of getting some basic stuff is like the music that you prefer, but put your own spin on it as much as you can whenever you can. It is very important to do that. Very, very important. Now, okay, I'm going to try something as an example with melody right now, because that's certainly one of my strengths, but I want to show you how easy it is to come up with a melody and how random can work for you. I really think there's a misconception that melody is all about, okay, you start with a note and then you have to figure out what the next perfect note is, or what a cool note to follow it is. And it doesn't really, that's not really how it, I mean, you don't really have to do that. I think that's a mistake to look at it that way. I always look at melody as a walk in the park. When you are walking, you can either walk fast, you can walk slow, you can be really happy while you're walking, or you can be sad and you're trying to get over your melancholy with a walk in the park. You can go up the hills in the park, or you can go down next to the small stream in the park, and you can skip around, or you can go really fast, or there's all these different options, and none of them are wrong. And that's another important concept. There are no wrong notes. It's just taste and choice. The definition of music is sound in time. So sound is governed by some type of time component. The rest is just, if you've got one person who likes what you're playing, or what you've come up with, it's music. So it's not really that hard to do. You just need to be willing to take the walk and go. It's a journey. So you start with a note, and then your mood dictates where you go with it. But it can also be totally random, and it can be less conscious than even that. So I'd like to ask all your help now, if you can. I want each of you, I'll use the first several that come up, but go ahead and give me a random number 1 through 8, please. So if you can do that in the comments, and that will, I'll go ahead and make a note of these as they come in. So please, just each of you just come up with a random number between 1 and 8. Oh wow, they're coming in quick. And I'll just go with the first ones that come in, at least through my my group. Wow, a lot of the same ones. Okay, that works. That I got 7, so that'll work between Facebook and. Okay, I'll bring in Johnson for 8, and we'll do those 8. Now, everybody who commented on that, go ahead and give me a another number, 1 through 4, random number. So yeah, just 1 through 4. Pick a random number and put that up. So 1 through 4. And okay. Wow. Again, a lot of the same numbers, but that is always good. Wow, a lot of the same numbers. Okay. Now, why I did that was because I chose 1 through 8 to be the notes in the scale. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then 1 through 4 is note duration for how long the note will be. So yeah, you'll do 1 is a is a whole note kind of thing, and then 2 is a half note, 3 is a quarter note, 4 is an eighth note, and doing it like that. I'm not going to get into 16th notes or 32nd notes or going crazy with that. So that'll at least give me a rough idea, and I'm just going to try to play these out here. So let me do a quick conversion, because that'll be I'll do it in the key of C, because, well, you know, the family key, it's the easiest. Wow, okay, this is interesting. I've never really tried it with 8 notes before. I usually only use 5, so this should be interesting. And I'll type all these out because it just takes a second to. Otherwise, because I'm really, this is a weird kind of shorthand to do it and to do musical notes. I probably should have brought up a transcription program. So yeah. What? Okay, and I'm making mistakes. So here we go. There we go. All right. So the numbers I got were 373-43615 for the notes, and the durations were 3-4-3-4-2-2-2-2. Y'all love your twos. So I'm going to try this and just give it a go. Let me see if I can. So what I did was I took that melody and then I did a variation of it for the second time around, and went back to that melody that y'all provided, and then I did a second variation of it, and mainly the variation, it was still using the exact same timing of the notes. I just changed which notes I used, and it gave me a lot to start with. One thing you have to remember about music is creating music is hard. Editing is easy. That's true with most things, I think, whether it's writing or any type of creative idea. It's editing is a lot easier than creating. So once you have your idea, it's a lot easier to put it together. And with this, I just used that whole setup to get a good start, and then I tweaked it. And I did it on the fly. And once you are a lot more comfortable with music, you can do things like that. But yes, I've done this many times, usually with 4 or 5 or 6 notes. But yeah, it's never failed me. It's not always great what comes out, but it's never bad. And the reason is because it's random. You get a certain randomness where it's not just a boring, dum 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 dum. I mean, which is, even that's not horrible, but it's just it's the randomness makes it a lot more all over the place and more interesting. And from that, you can kind of tweak it a little bit. And yeah, somebody earlier said that that they glad they had their collection of dice, and that's it. I mean, I have used dice before for doing that, and I could have done that as an example here. Have something like that where you can just do a D8 and roll it out, and then make that happen. But yeah, it's not really something you have. I wanted to make it so that you knew that I was doing it with you, and that you came up with it all. So take a little longer, but I think it was worth it, because I thought that you should see what you can actually do with it. So yeah, with melody, a lot of it is just randomly picking stuff, and you can do that on the fly with music. You pick a note to start, doesn't matter what, just pick a random note, and then you take that journey through the park, and you just decide whether you want to go fast or slow. And once you've committed to it, I mean, it's just another thing off the checklist. Okay, I'm doing it fast. I'm doing it skipping around, so it's going up and down, and you just kind of go with it. Eventually, you don't even have to think about it, because you get used to that process of your mood suddenly just creates the music. But even if you never get there, you can still just consciously think about how you want that journey to go, and that's how you create the notes. But worst case scenario, you can just break out your Dungeons & Dragons dice and roll that D8 and roll that D4 and get someplace to start. And once you have that, you can start editing. You can just start making changes and making that work for you. Because like I said, editing is so much easier than creating. And you can try a lot of different things. Now, there are some melody creation programs that you can get, some apps and some software that will do some of that for you. Personally, I haven't really been too crazy about them, honestly. I think that's a crutch too far. I think instead of just pressing one button and having it do it, I think it's a little better to get a little more involved in the process and do it just to kind of get your brain to get used to it. Because if it just happens too fast, I'll put it this way: it's like following your GPS all the time in your car when you're driving around for maps, and it just tells you where to go and you follow it. Eventually, you can't read maps. People who learn how to do that have a tougher time reading maps normally. So they're not used to thinking that way. And I think if you spend a little more time with coming up with the numbers one after another and seeing the process play out one at a time, your brain will get a lot more used to creating them yourselves down the road automatically. So anyway, that's my advice for that. But to start off with, you've got to start off somewhere, and melodies are very intimidating for people. So I really recommend just rolling some dice and trying some stuff out, and then what you end up with, edit, mess with, play a little bit, say, that I don't like that note going lower here. Let's make it go higher, and trying different things and getting used to it. And the numbers I put in there for the note durations, it was approximate. I think I got it right, but you don't have to be obsessive about getting the timing exactly right. Just look at them as general trends for how the notes should be to start with, and I think that'll help a lot. Okay, still no questions so far, so that's a good thing. I'll take it. Okay, so for melody, that's what I recommend there. for lyrics, this is a little different because we're talking about a turn of phrase. I mean, some people are better at it than others. It really depends on your history and uh, how much time you've spent with words. Uh, and somebody's asking me about a particular song. Okay, you know, I'll answer that right after I get done with the lyrics part because I think that comes into play a little bit. So yes, I'll jump on that in a second. Um, yeah, I mean, some people are better with words than others. Um, that is, yeah, that's just the way that works. But here's the thing: you don't necessarily have to create the words. Um, a popular way to approach music with modern musicians is the concept of writing a hook. And what a hook is that kind of splashy phrase and melody and or rhythm that just draws people in. Usually it's in the chorus, uh, in between the verses that gets repeated a lot. Sometimes it's more conceptual, like this is just a very deep concept in the song and people like it. Sometimes it's just the melody that's upbeat that draws people in and they can't get the tune out of their head. But sometimes it's just a driving rhythm that everybody wants to dance to. So, but that's the hook. And for lyrics, writing a hook is sometimes it can be as simple as a phrase that you hear somebody say that you're just like, oh God, I love that. That just sounds so good. I want to write a song around that concept of that phrase. I mean, it could be something you read in a book or something you heard somebody say or whatever. Just one line or one sentence or even just one concept that you edit a little bit or tweak to make it your own that for you is what this song needs to be about. And with lyrics, that's kind of where you want to start. You want to start with that. There was, talking about a different song I wrote once, there was a song I wrote called The Path. And the hook for that, or at least the basic concept of it, I wrote many years ago, actually before I became a professional musician. I remember walking on the campus of the college I went to after I already left, after I graduated and done that. I went back and just walked around, and I was just kind of like, just how many times I've walked this path. I mean, this is just crazy. And I thought, how many times I've walked this path? Huh, I like that concept. And I just wrote that phrase down, and I put it in my my folder of song ideas, essentially. I had a huge folder of song ideas when I started doing music seriously. And that was the foundation. It took years before I went back to it and said, this is a good travel song. I'm going to do this. Um, and that's where that came from initially. But it started with that one phrase. I mean, before the rhythm, before the melody, those words were where I started. So it's kind of interesting sometimes how that's how it works. Um, because I mean, you really kind of have to use several different parts of your brain for writing music. I mean, it's not just creativity and emotion. I mean, you also have to be rational and logical about it a little bit too. I mean, you kind of have to balance that out as much as you can. Uh, Sometimes you do it all at the same time. Sometimes you start with one and then work with the other in editing. But yeah, anyway, lyrics, that's kind of how you need to approach that. You start off with a phrase or a concept you like, and then you work with how to convey that concept. Um, it can be something as simple as the weather. Let's go with the most inane thing I can think of, and you talk about how the weather affects you every day, and that has worked in music many, many times. I mean, think about the whole Sesame Street theme song, "Sunny Day," and it works. You can make a very basic concept sound great and amazing. So yeah, that is really how you need to look at lyrics. I think just start with an idea and roll with it. Now, okay, so to answer, I guess M Pickens or EM Pickens or question. Uh, yeah, how the develop the song "Bards Don't Suck." Yeah, now that started from last year at Dragon Con, I was on stage with Mark Gunn, and I was conveying a an anecdote about this panel that was going on at Dragon Con called titled "Do Bards Suck?" And I was aghast when I saw that in the program. I was like, "What? Oh, come on!" And I just wanted to dress in full bard regalia with instruments all over me and everything, and full traveling gear, and just go over there to the panel, stand over to the side, and just glare at the panelists for the entire time. Yeah, I was going to be that guy. So I took a little offense to that. I'm just not going to lie. Uh, if they'd said why bards don't suck, I would have been cool with it. But no, that was too ambiguous. So I thought about going, but it conflicted with one of my shows, so I couldn't go. And I was so upset. So I was telling people that on stage in a break in between songs, and it just kind of jumped in with people were saying, oh, we need to do the song, we need to do the song. And so Mark starts playing some chords, and I just start, okay. So I just went, bards don't suck, bards don't suck. I don't care what you say, bards don't suck. And I just went with it. And he started with a few chords that I kind of used as a basis. They were, I think, the similar chords to what we were playing with the song before. And so I did a rough melody with that. It says, bards don't suck, bards don't suck. I don't care what you say, bards don't suck, bards don't suck, bards don't suck. We don't care what you say, bards don't suck. And I kept that. And I started throwing out random verses in the during the show, which not that great, honestly. But I took the idea and put it in my little folder, like I always do, and then went back to it and worked on it. And what happened was, it I started thinking about, how do I develop that idea? I mean, bards don't suck. Well, they were talking about the classic Dungeons and Dragons bard at the panel, because somebody was telling me, who had actually gone to the panel, was telling me about it later after the show. And I was kind of like, the bards kind of evolved over the years of Dungeons and Dragons. I've played every edition at this point, so I have at least a familiarity with all of it. And I was kind of curious, so I did a little research just to clarify my brain and on the different editions of the Dungeons and Dragons Bard, and thought, what if I did each verse as a separate edition and describe what the kind of like the pros and cons of what made the Bard good or bad in that edition. And I just went through each one and ended up doing first edition, second edition, third edition, 3.5, fourth edition, and now fifth edition. So 6 verses, a little bit long, but because of that, I made it pretty fast, and I made it a bit of a tongue twister. There's some lines in there that are, well, I mean, the first edition bard is a fighter, brute thief, and its high stat restrictions caused a myriad of grief. And then it's just kind of like writing poetry. You just kind of go in and each line is its own idea. You kind of just write, well, what I would do is I would write out the pros and cons of a bard. This is what made a first edition bard. This is what made it first edition bard good. This is what made it first edition bard bad. And then songwriting is telling a story. Over 9 times out of 10. I mean, it's like 99% of the time it's telling a story. So I took it as I'm talking to you about what a first edition bard was. So I took all that information and just tried to summarize it as best as I could. And there was so much information, trying to do that in 4 lines was a bit rough. So it ended up being a bit of a tongue twister. But that actually added to the charm. And that's the other beautiful thing about songwriting. So it takes you places that you never intended to go, sometimes by accident, where there's too much information. Well, I guess I'm going to compact a lot of information, and it turned it into a fun little tongue twister song, trying to get all the words out. And sometimes it is not easy. Still working on getting comfortable with that one, actually. But yeah, I've so far ended up doing almost 5 different arrangements of it, because it's evolved, changing the melody around and doing several different things. And it has, I'm almost settled. The one, when I played it the other day, that was sort of a hybrid of the last two arrangements I did, and I even did a few new things I had not done in that song before during that live show. Always evolving. So it's still in that process. I it's rare for me to just write a song in like 30 minutes. I've done it before, but it doesn't happen often. Usually it's a process that evolves. There's a song I wrote, Satisfied, that many years ago, that I wrote in 30 minutes. It was, I would describe it as being in the zone. The chords, the lyrics, the melody, it just sort of went wow. And um, any creative endeavor, I'm sure all of you can relate to being in a creative endeavor, and it just flowed. It was like you were in the right mood, in the right place, both emotionally and mentally. You drank enough fluids, you've full stomach, there was nothing to distract you. You were ready to go, and you just did it all. And that's kind of how it was. Distractions can be rough. And in saying that, I do want to bring up something else. The saddest part about songwriting is all of the songs you forgot. Every creative person has had this problem, whether they're in advertising, whether they're an artist, or whatever. Any type of thing that requires an idea. That's you've all been through this, where you were in the shower with warm water cascading over you, and you're just like, oh, I'm so relaxed. Hey, that's a great idea. I should do that. And then, you finish up in the shower and you go and you get dressed and you're all ready. And then you're like, what was that idea? Oh God, what was that idea? And you maybe you remember parts of it, but you just don't get it all. Or you're in the process of driving and you can't, you just can't write it down or do anything with it easily. That is the number of ideas I have lost. Oh, some of them were good too. It's very frustrating. And when you open your brain up to creating songs, melodies, lyrics, ideas, rhythms, I mean, you start thinking about it more and more, and creating more stuff. The more stuff you write, the more your brain is going to think about it out of habit. So keep trying to do that. But more importantly, your phone, get an app on it that for recording. I mean, even if you're humming or singing or beatboxing or whatever, make sure you have a recording app on your phone for those ideas. Because, I mean, I don't know if it'll help much in the shower, but, try. Do everything you can, because early on, before I had that, I lost so many song ideas. I still do, but nowhere near as many as I did. And it is so frustrating. So yes, improve your songwriting ability by not losing ideas. And for which app to use, it doesn't matter, whichever one you're comfortable with. Just one that at least records it and you can listen to it back. Any type of dictaphone type of recording app, a basic one, the easier to use, the better. Where you just open the app, press a button, it's recording. So it's as convenient as possible. Okay. Oh, wow. We're really getting along now. Rhythm. I talked a little bit about that at the beginning. As far as rhythm goes, there are a lot of drum machines and things like that out there, both physical and app-based, that you can use to kind of try different rhythms out for drum kits and things like that. Some are very good, some not so good. It depends on the style of music you're using. That's usually a good place to work on it and mess with things if you don't have your instruments available. But I usually find that if rhythm is your strength, you're going to start with that and build on it. If it's not, rhythm is hard. I mean, I don't think it's given enough credit in the grand scheme of things with music. I think people tend to think of melody and lyrics as being a lot more difficult than rhythm, and they're wrong. Because rhythm can be just as important, and it is not necessarily easy. I generally go with the strength, since for me it's lyrics and melody, which are my strengths. Rhythm, I tend to go with a basic rhythm for my stuff, and then let the melody and the lyrics try to shine, and that's what makes my songs. Go with your strengths. And I think that's the thing. I mean, for you, if rhythm is your thing, let the rhythms be awesome, and then just do some basic lyrics and basic melody, and go with it. And the rhythm will drive it. It start with that, and you'll get better at the other stuff. I've gotten better at rhythm over the years. I don't think I'm not great at it, but I'm a lot better than I was 10 years ago. That's definitely sure. And you'll develop it too, but go with your strength first. That's the big key. As far as lyrics, I mean, rhyming dictionaries are your friend. There's web pages for it. There's apps for it. They're free, no problem, easy to find. And like I said, look for phrases that you love. I go with old phrases. I like people don't write like they used to as often. I mean, you get a turn of phrase that's so lyrical, that was so popular 50, 100 years ago. It's just it's not as common. So look at some old books. I mean, everything from Walden to the writings of John Muir, founder of the Sierra Club. I mean, there's so many possibilities there with some great writing that can be very inspirational, and that's a good place to look for lyrics. Melody, I already talked to you about the whole dice rolling and coming up with things like that. You can also do variations of melodies you hear. If you like something, look at that as a foundation, and then say, okay, this kind of starts off here, it goes down, then it goes really up here, and then it's kind of right kind of up here, and then it kind of goes back. Okay, let's start here, and instead of going down, we'll go up, and then we'll go up to the same part that was over there, but then you can kind of edit somebody else's music to make it not plagiarism. It's a fine line, but it's a place to start if you are having trouble with melody. So yeah, anyway. Okay, yeah, we're really getting down here to the time. So, okay. Let's see. I think we're in pretty good shape now. Are there any questions I should ask? Because I tried to give you a few basic tips to kind of help you feel a little better about songwriting, and if you are already doing songwriting, hopefully a few suggestions that might help a little bit. So if you have any questions, please, this is the time to go ahead and throw them out there. And let me know. Otherwise, let's see. I mean, I know that don't be discouraged because a song doesn't automatically happen for you. I told you the process can take a long time, and sometimes it's best to shelve it. If you're stuck, go ahead and just put it away. Stop thinking about it, because if you obsess too much, you'll get trapped in a concept of this is what the song is supposed to be like, even though it's not working, and you can't get your head out of that space. But yeah, I mean, that's a good route to do. It's an old Asimov trick. Isaac Asimov, he used to say that when he would have writer's block, he would just go to a movie and enjoy the movie, not think about the book at all, and go there. And when he left the movie, he said every time the answer would just come to him. And I think he just stepped away and came back, but he did it on a creative level. Because even when you step away, when you're doing creative things, your creativity still pushes you, and you have to be creative with something else, and then be able to step back. It's sort of like a fresh start to work it. And with movies, well, I always got involved creatively with movies when I watched them, so I guess it was true for Asimov too. So good advice, just kind of be able to step away. Okay. So question from YouTube, from Ian Pickens. Do you develop songs with others, and what's that process like for you? You know, when I first started, Uh, when I first started playing music professionally, I should say, with my old bandmate Mark Gunn, with the Brobdingnagian Bards, we developed a lot of songs together. It was a lot of the time. I mean, there were some songs that we did on our own, and we pretty much had the arrangement done, and it was just the other person, hey, add a part for you in there, come up with something for that. But the main song was already written. But there were plenty of songs that we either arranged together or wrote together. And honestly, it depends. And that actually brings up a topic I didn't really talk about, for especially for lyrics. But one thing you should look at is collaborating. If you are really strong on one of those things and really weak on another, look at maybe pairing with somebody who's your opposite. Who's like, if you're really great at rhythm and not so great at lyrics, you're okay with melody. Why don't you bring somebody in who's really great with lyrics, but not great with rhythm, and then the two of you can write some great stuff. Some of the history is full of great songwriting collaborations, whether it's Rodgers and Hammerstein or Gilbert and Sullivan, that kind of thing. It's very common. So yeah, I think the process is really interesting. It's how do I explain this process? Because there's no rule. That's the thing. Think of it as working on a project together. When you work on a project with somebody, it's going to be different how you work with this person as opposed to how you work with this other person, because different personalities. I mean, how you relate, how you talk to them. It's totally different. Mark and our biggest strength was that we came at music in totally different ways. I approached it from more of a classical perspective. He approached it from more of a rock perspective. And it was very interesting. And when we put it together, we still somehow made it blend and work. But yeah, I mean, it's less about the collaboration with the music and more about the collaboration with the personalities. You need to understand their process, and you adapt yours to them, and then they do the exact same thing, because it's no longer of you do it your way. You've got to create your together way of how to do it. So it's adapting your process to them, and they need to do the same thing. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Because if you try to totally change your way of doing it with them, I mean, unless you're really new at it and you're coming at it as an, I've never done this before, let's try this. Okay, maybe then, but otherwise, no. I mean, you need to be able to, don't lose yourself with somebody else's vision. Create a vision that is both of yours. I think that's the idea there. It's collaborative, and you need to approach it that way. If one person's in charge and it's their vision, I mean, if they wrote the song and they've done most of it, okay. It's like I always would say, Mark, okay, you wrote the song, this is your thing, so I'm just really adding my part to it. So if you don't like that, I'll bow to you, because this is your thing. But when it starts out equally at the beginning, make it very collaborative. Your opinion is just as important as theirs, and vice versa. Don't lose sight of that. Okay, other questions. Mentioned plagiarism, yet much of Filk is based on covers or parodies. Yeah, that's true. And how do I balance those two ideas? Well, parodies aren't plagiarism. I mean, there's legal precedent for that now. Thank you, Weird Al. But yeah, it's one of those things where with parodies, you're essentially taking their template and creating your own thing. Now, I've always looked at Filk as two types of Filk. There's dependent and independent Filk. Dependent means if you don't get the reference, if you don't know the song you're parodying, or you don't know what the fandom the song is about, the song is meaningless to you. It's not. It's not independent of it. Independent Filk is, even if you don't know what the original song was, even if you don't know what the fandom is about, the song explains it, and you get it, and it's a fun song, and it's not a problem. So it's not required. So that's a bit of a thing that I think is important to know about. And I think independent Filk is much better, personally. There are times dependent filk is necessary, because if you don't know the fandom, you're not going to get the joke, and you probably shouldn't get the joke. So okay, I can totally accept that. But generally, for mass appeal, I think independent filk is definitely the way to go. But balancing those two ideas of, I still think that when you create filk, you need to make it your own as much as you can, because I talked about making songs your own, and I think that's very important. I mean, you need to put your own spin on it. Think about like taking somebody's song and arranging it for yourself. You change the tempo, or you maybe go a few different places with the melody. I mean, don't make it exactly the same. I mean, part of the joke often is that people recognize the original tune, and that can be important, but still put your own spin on the arrangement. I mean, make it your own. Don't just make it sound like it's their song and they're just singing. They're singing and they're singing separate words. So make it your own, and I think that's how I balance it, Thomas. Let's see. And Sean on Facebook is saying, can you speak to not getting bogged down with editing in your head and not letting ideas get on paper or recorded? Yes. I very much suffer from that. It is tough because I can be a perfectionist sometimes. And I'm waiting for Amber to cut in and say, yes, he can. But yeah, I mean, yeah, you're never going to get anything perfect. And the important thing to remember is that she's saying she'll keep her comments to herself. That's actually shocking. But yeah, the whole not getting bogged down thing, the key is really to remember, like I told you that I did the Bards Don't Suck song, the Bard song on my show the other day. It's not done. It's still a work in progress. But I told you that I actually just did a few different things that I'd never done with it before. I did arrangement on the fly, and something felt right, and I tried something and went with it in a performance. And it just, it worked really well. It it worked really well, so I'm going to use it in the future. And the thing is, getting it out there will actually help you make the song better. And I think that's how to keep from getting bogged down. I was just kidding. I was just kidding about Amber. We kid. No, anybody who's seen any of the shows I've done so far knows that I have given Amber insane kudos for what she's accomplished this year with DragonCon Online, and years past too. She is amazing what she's been able to do, and all of this would not be happening at all anywhere near as good of a job if it wasn't for her. I mean, there's plenty of other people helping her, sure, but they're helping her because of her. They're doing this because she asked them to. She's putting all this together. So if anybody deserves a lion's share of the credit, it's Amber. So there you go. And she knows that. So yeah, honestly, I do in chat or later, if you're just sending a message to the DragonCon Filk track, after DragonCon Online is over, please send a message to Amber and tell her thank you very much for doing this, because she deserves it more than anybody else in the Filk track for sure. And an amazing job. And feel free to do a general message to DragonCon too, talking about how good of a job Amber did with the Filk track, because yeah, tell them that, by the way, you've got this person who's phenomenal. You should use her more. Just saying. And she is right. She can't do this without the volunteer team, and she does have support, and there is a large group, but still, keeping volunteers and everybody together is a big job too, and Amber deserves credit for that. Just saying. Okay, I think we only have a few more minutes, so did I miss any questions? Are there any more? Yeah, Laurel said somebody once told her that perfect is the enemy of done. And you're right. I think that's a very good point there. And I think here's the other thing you should consider. When it comes to art, there is no done. you'll never be done. There's no perfection. There's no right answer with music. There's no wrong answer. It's just taste, choice. And if you were to write a song when you were 20 years old and write a song again when you were 40, I mean, the songs would be totally different. Even if it was the same subject matter, the same concept, everything, because you're a different person, you're in a different place. Tastes change. I mean, some people might like the 20-year-old version much better. Some people might like the 40-year-old version much better. It depends. There's no right or wrong. So never think about a song as ever being done. It always evolves, and every time you play it, it's going to be a little different probably. So yeah, I mean, don't stress too much about the concept of done with music. Music and art is a journey. There is never a destination, ever. Oh yeah. Okay. So any last questions? Yeah, projects aren't finished; they're abandoned, according to Baldruminant on YouTube. Yeah, that's okay. I like that. That's pretty funny. So yeah, I think no more questions. Okay. Well, hopefully all of you got at least a few tips on songwriting, and maybe at least one thing that you thought, oh, that's a good way to look at it, and hopefully it'll help. You can only do so much in an hour. I wish I could do like a 2 or 3 hour long project and just go through the whole process of writing a song with y'all and do something like that. Maybe some year we can try that, but just write at least a verse and a chorus and go through the process. But hopefully I gave you at least a taste of what that would be like. And that would be good. I guess that's all I really have, unless y'all have any more questions, thoughts, comments, quips, queries, quotes, quandaries. Yeah, and Ian Pickens is saying workshop. Yeah, exactly. I think that would be really good. I think a workshop would be a lot of fun doing it that way, going that route. Well, you're welcome. Oh, careful what you wish for. No, I mean, I think it'd be a lot of fun to just spend. I mean, we do a little bit of that on the filk track with the writing a filk together, and that's a bit of the process. Now, I don't know if it's quite the same because that's taking collaboration to an extreme level when dozens of people are all adding parts to a song, and it's a parody, so it's not quite like writing you're mainly just working on the lyrics, so it's a little more specific. But I think Instafilk certainly gives you a taste of it, at least with lyrics for writing. But yeah, I think that's all we have. So I guess I guess that's I will turn it over to Amber.
Thank you so much, Andrew. And yes, I will be clipping where you give me praise, and I'm just going to keep it on loop every time that I annoy you. Love you. Thank you, Andrew, so much. And thank y'all for coming out and watching this live stream. Coming up next, we have our Fresh Filk debuts, 2x10s. This will be the second part. I had actually enough submissions from asking folks who hadn't been to DragonCon for one reason or another over the years to participate to 2 unique hours of programming. So this will be the second half. It'll be coming up at 4 p.m. And then after that at 5:30, we will have a live show with the Faithful Sidekicks as their DragonCon debut. They were supposed to be coming if we had a real physical con. I keep saying physical con, not real con, because this is real too. We're just socially distanced. After the Faithful Sidekicks, we'll be having the Night Sabers on. This will be a pre-recorded show, but I am sure that Chris Saber will be popping into comments as that plays. After that, at 8:30, we'll have Matricula live. And then to close out our track streams for the day, At 10 p.m., we will have a very special edition of Jackbox Games with the Misbehaving Maidens and the PDX Broadsides. As it is an after 10 p.m. Eastern show, this will have adult themes. It's also the Maidens. All right. Well, I will see y'all back here at 4 p.m. For the